Hello, my name's Dave. Dave Gamer Dave Naple. This is my co-host, Saul Starsheep and Cena.
We're gonna start like that.
Let's see why not.
Well.
Do you want to think of a better gamer tag right now?
Hey! So anyways, you just started, I guess.
Did we?
Yeah, pretty
Sure.
much. I've been recording this whole time.
I was gonna ask if you were recording.
Yeah.
I assumed you were, but I wasn't
Because
sure.
why not, I guess.
Because why not?
So yeah, this is our podcast that I guess we're just trying.
Are we gonna go without the intro then? My
What?
great intro, or are we gonna use the one that I did?
We'll just use the one that you did, I
far.
guess.
Alright,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Nothing really else to say, I guess, so far, because this is literally square one for us, essentially. If you're listening, thanks. Hopefully you'll find this somewhat
If you're
interesting.
listening, I'm sorry, but thank you.
But thank you, yes. I don't know. Hopefully you'll find something that's at least funny. I guess just to preface, the whole reason we've sort of started this, and at least got some encouragement, is just from these general conversations that Dave and I have with each other that can, more often than not, get unnecessarily heated, I guess. It's not that we argue, like, all the time, and whenever we do, it's always over something, trivial, like mostly Disney movies, video games, more Disney movies. I think we've had the most heated conversations over Disney movies that
Yes.
I've ever had with anybody in my entire life.
Wow, really?
I think so.
Wait, the most heated discussions about Disney movies, or the most heated discussions in general you've ever had in your life are with me about Disney movies?
In general, in my life.
Wow. All right.
And when I was in high school, I used to think I knew stuff about politics.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, you hold the trophy, I guess.
Great.
And that was about Tangled, but that's gonna have to be its own episode because I'm sure I'm gonna get angry over it again.
I'm sure you will. I don't. You think it's still? Oh, okay. I shouldn't get into that now.
Please don't.
No. Yeah.
Please
okay.
don't. And so, I mean, I guess that's enough preface. There's not a whole lot of stuff to preface about. So, let's go ahead and get started. So, on the docket today, we have some news coming up that was revealed on the last. Was it a Nintendo Direct or was it just like a Pokemon-centric
I think it was
Direct?
a Pokemon. It was definitely a Pokemon-centered one, and I don't remember when it was. But coming out, what was it? The 22nd.
22nd of September. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna finally release the Generation 2 Pokemon releases, which is gonna be Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal.
Wait, I don't think Crystal is coming out.
No, I'm pretty sure Crystal is.
Okay.
Pretty sure.
Okay.
If so, I might have to get that, but I never had Crystal when I was a kid, so I don't see the point of it. This is sort of in response to last year when Pokemon celebrated its 20th year anniversary. 20 years, by the way. 20th anniversary, and last year they released the Generation 1 American Pokemon titles on the 3DS Virtual Console, which is Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow.
Mm-hmm.
I've had those for about a year now, obviously, and I've played not but maybe an hour out of each.
Not much.
I have really wanted to. I mean, the intent is there. Doesn't that count for something?
Sure. I mean, must have been those guys who crushed you super hard.
Okay, so there's
That
a
was a good
story
time.
around this time, I guess. The game Pokémon Tournament was being advertised,
Which,
and
by the way, was also... I don't remember if this was the initial announcement, but they had the big trailer for it at the same time they announced Gen 2 coming back out. That was part of the entire... I think that was part of the whole...
you mean Pokémon DX, right?
Yeah, Pokémon DX,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
re-release for the Switch.
Anyway, so this was back when the first one was being released for the Wii U. Dave kind of keeps up more on the goings on of like gamer news more than I do. In fact, 100% more than I do. And he found out that there were going to be some tournaments at a GameStop or selected GameStops around like SoCal and like I guess the nation too. On this game, Pokémon Tournament, that had not yet been released yet, so it was sort of like a even ground for everybody. And so we just decided to make a day out of it because the nearest one was like in Irvine, right?
Yeah, it was in Orange County.
Yeah, and so we just made a day out of it. We got there super late. I don't know why we took so long. Oh, you stayed the night that night, right?
I did. I don't remember why it went so long. Probably because you were still hedging about not wanting to go.
Yeah,
Because you were
probably.
not super interested in
I
going.
was not at all. We go there. Well, I've never been to a hang in that way. You know what I mean? Like I've never been to a con. I've never been to I mean, just straight up, I've never been to any of these areas where I'm like around my kin. You know what I mean? Around my loser gamers too. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, so I went. We brought our 3DSs because why not? And we got in the way back of the line. But granted, the line did grow when we got there, so we weren't the furthest back.
Yeah.
But suffice it to say, we did not make it in. But there were some people around us that, like, I think we were fighting about something, right?
We were arguing. I don't remember what it was we were talking about at all, but it was just so natural. Like, that was the cool thing. Like, it was just so chill to just talk to these other guys who were in line with us. And this was immediately after the first gen re-releases had come out, so it was right in the midst of the 20th anniversary celebration for Pokemon. And we were just like, you know, we had all basically just started the game and had our starter and like a Rattata, I guess. And we're like, hey, let's try this new Wi-Fi battle. Whoa! And it was fun.
It was. I fought somebody, right? And I won, didn't I?
I think you were the only person. I remember you winning the first game, and then I felt like you guys played 2 more times and you lost those times.
Did I?
Or something.
Maybe.
I really don't remember.
Those first battles are always a gamble, anyways, right?
Yeah, it's like, does my leech seed hit? Yes, great. Then no, oops, I guess I lose. Like, yeah.
But that was cool. I do remember. I think we were playing Smash. I was playing Smash with somebody or something like that, and then you were like, I think you wanted to do a Link battle. I think on Pokemon over 3DS, and I was like, I don't know, like I don't want to waste my battery on the internet, something like that. And you're like, you don't want to waste your battery. And I'm like, no. He's all like, you have your 3D all the way on and your brightness all the way up. You don't want to waste your battery.
Volume was all the way up too. In the middle of this, you could barely hear anything. And like, I need my volume all the way up, obviously. Because why wouldn't I?
And so Dave made me feel very small in front of all those gamers because all those gamers also ended up laughing at me as well. So
it was a good time. We really bonded over shared interests like Pokemon and laughing at Saul.
I'm not gonna say it.
Okay.
I'm not gonna say it. That's gonna be too kitschy if I end up actually.
Continue.
It's gonna be too kitschy if I end up saying the actual title of the dang podcast.
I agree.
So. Anyways, so move forward to about a year later or so, and now we're finally getting the Gen 2. This is big news for Dave and I because...
Oh, just to clarify, I fact-checked, and there is no Crystal. I actually felt like I remembered this because when it was initially announced, there was some questioning of why Crystal wasn't on there. Crystal was technically... So, it's sort of interesting when the Gen 2 came out because... Technically, all 3, Gold, Silver, and Crystal, were Game Boy Color games, quote-unquote.
Right.
And it was sort of a weird delineation where they were Game Boy games. The Game Boy Color was backwards compatible. You could play all Game Boy games on the Game Boy Color. But rather than being Game Boy games that were optimized for Game Boy Color, Gold and Silver were technically labeled as Game Boy Color games that were backwards compatible with the Game Boy, which was... a strange delineation. All that to say, Crystal was a legit Game Boy Color game. You could only play it on the Game Boy Color. The colors on the Pokemon were optimized to actually be the colors they were supposed to be canonically. I remember specifically Sneasel because he was my favorite Pokemon that generation, had a very different color palette for his ear and some other things in Crystal compared to Gold, Silver, and Crystal was the canon colors. So it might have something to do with the fact that it is a Game Boy Color game and they would want to upcharge for it, but it'd be like I think it's only like $1 more for Game Boy Color games on the 3DS VC, so I don't really know why they're not doing that, but...
Maybe they're planning something special for it, I don't know.
I doubt it.
Okay.
I don't know, what special thing would they do? Because, well, I mean, Game Boy Advance... No, Game Boy Advance does have... It is on VC, just not for the 3DS. It's on the Wii U VC, but the Wii U is dead.
Do you also still have those GBA VC games that you got for...
Yeah.
Being that? So they have the technology, basically.
The technology's there, but they swore up and down when it happened that these games, they were given to the ambassadors of the 3DS, which is to say... those people who purchased the 3DS before it got its like $80 price drop 3 months after its release, they swore up and down that they would never re-release those 10 games that you got for free for being part of that, and they never have, and in fact they have never even opened up a GBA VC for the 3DS, despite the technology obviously being there. They waited until the Wii U, and that's the only GBA VC we've got to this point, and we could talk for days about why the Switch doesn't have VC yet and what's going on
so
there. But
weird.
Yeah.
It's just weird. Their decisions like puzzle me.
Yes,
like,
welcome to Nintendo.
Yeah, there
Their
you go.
decisions.
So anyways, like we said, next month on September 22nd, they will be released. I will be, of course, getting Pokemon Silver because that's the one I grew up with.
Yep. I'll be getting Pokemon Gold.
Okay.
Same.
Yeah.
Yep.
I thought we would probably start by just talking about like what Gen 2 was for us, because we have spoken about this at length with each other, and we both agree that Gen 2 is better than Gen 1. It's kind of weird saying that though, because you can't have Gen 2 without Gen 1.
It's not that weird to me.
It's not that weird?
No, but you finish your thought.
Well, I think that's kind of weird. I mean, I don't know, because when I had Gen 1, man, I mean, I played that to the bone, like whenever I could. Whenever I had any opportunity to play it, I would do it. Even after I was done with the game itself, like post game wasn't anything in Gen 1 essentially. Post game was Mewtwo, and then that was it, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And like, I mean, even after that, I beat the Elite Four way too many times to count.
Sure.
And this was even before I found out about the missing no glitch and everything like that. I just did the Elite Four over and over again because I just wanted to keep playing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, I loved Gen 1 basically. Gen 2 came out. Can you find out what year Gen 2 came out?
Sure.
When Gen 2 came out,
I'd say it was 98 or 99.
98?
It could be off, but that's just a guess.
I remember, I have a lot of memories with Gen 2, especially in like the summertime. I don't think I got Gen 2 immediately when it released, but I do remember having just a lot of memories of like just playing it like in the summertime, being free on my Game Boy Color. You know what? It must be around then, because Pokemon Yellow came out, and I got it for my birthday along with the Game Boy Color. I remember playing that a whole lot as well. And so when did it come out?
Oh wow! And North America didn't actually come out till 2000, late 2000 at that.
Okay, that makes sense to me, because I was just a little kid. So many things about that game were just like such a groundbreak that, I mean, I didn't even realize back then were like kind of not heard of in other RPGs like yet at that time, but I still just thoroughly enjoyed them. The timing system, like the day and night system, even like calling people, like
the calling system is one of the really interesting ones, because I'll just give you a little bit of insight, and I'll talk more about this later, but Gen 3 was a real disappointment to me after Gen 2, not even necessarily because of anything Gen 3 did wrong, but because Gen 2 just felt like it had it all. And the phone system was one of the things that I felt Gen 3 was missing that Gen 2 had. But it was a really clunky system when you really think about it. But like, calling people had absolutely no effect. Like, it didn't mean anything. You could only have 10 people in your phone at a time, and that affected who could call you, not anything else. And like, that was kind of interesting because different people you would have in your phone did different things. Some of them would tell you when really rare Pokemon were around. Some of them would give you items that were potentially fairly rare, exclusive. And others you could battle. And in Gen 2, it was actually kind of rough grinding for some other interesting design reasons about the game. But it was interesting, but you had so little control over when it would happen that it was almost pointless. But when it did happen, it gave it so much time. Like, even when people called you for no reason other than to waste your time, which, thinking about it now, I probably shouldn't even talk about this now, but thinking about it now, I wonder if that's where Toby Fox got the idea in Undertale for Alphys just to call you and waste your time. Because that's kind of what happens a lot in Gen 2. Like, you can only take Joey calling you about his Rattata so many times before you stop laughing at it being a meme when you're actually in game. This was even before memes existed back then.
Right.
So, Joey wasn't going to last long on your phone anyway, because all he would do was battle you with his single, I think eventually it became Eradicate. I don't actually remember. But it was a really charming system. And everything about the game, and there were so many different things about Gen 2 like that. The night and day system was another thing going to Gen 3, when they have you set a clock at the beginning of Gen 3, and it's like, oh, sweet, night and day, and then it wasn't back. I actually don't know if it's come back in... It started it came back in Gen 4. It came back in Gen 4.
Well, I mean, it
really
hasn't even come back in Gen 6 or Gen 7,
It came back in Gen 7.
Oh, that's right.
But it was
who
reversed.
Cares? Yeah, who cares?
Gosh, okay, we'll talk about that some
yes,
other
we
time.
will. Okay.
But, yeah, going back to Gen 1 and 2, like, yeah, I played the snot out of Gen 1. Like, I love that game. Like, I think that's still the only one to this date where I actually played through it twice, basically with no time in between. I played through it once, just straight up. I was a dumb kid. I trained only my Venusaur, and I solar beamed everything. And I could not figure out why I couldn't beat this darn Charizard that I was 30 levels above. Probably because I was using solar beam against the fire flying type. But I digress. And then the second time I played through it, this is the one time I can remember my entire life where I did this, but I actually used a Game Shark.
Oh my gosh.
Not because, obviously there are enough ways to hack.
How dare you?
Pokemon, don't you talk to me, Mr. Infinite Rare Candy. I actually never did the Infinite Rare Candy thing. I just didn't, like, that bother. The only thing I wanted to do was I wanted to start with the Kadabra. Because I just thought he was super cool. So all I did was hack the game to start with because you can't start with an Abra, because, pro tip, they only know teleport, and you will never be able to do anything.
Okay, how about this? Let's not call it hacking the game when you're using a Game Shark, okay?
Isn't that literally what you're doing?
Sure, but you're not the one doing it.
What? But you put the Game Shark... You're not the one doing it?
You're not the one doing it!
Okay, are you trying to say that I'm insinuating some kind of, like, elite hacker that, like, went into the code and whatever to do it? And, like, a Game Shark, that's obviously not what you're doing.
If you say you hacked the game, then yes, I think it's fair to say that you're trying to imply
I guess I didn't hack it. I just cheated with a Game Shark. Although the code you had to put in that thing to get the specific results made you feel like you were hacking. Like, the user interface for that thing was absolutely ridiculous by today's standards.
I don't know anybody.
It was ridiculous by that day's standards.
I didn't know anybody with the Game Shark. That was just some sort of like enigma. Like, oh, you could do this with Game Shark. Like, oh, Game Shark, what's that?
Yeah, Game Shark.
What kind of
and Game Genie?
Is he dangerous? Who is this Game Shark?
But yeah. But Gen 2 was just. I don't ascribe to the theory that because something comes first, it's better. I understand the argument of originality, and certainly there's something about Generation 1 of Pokemon where that charm will probably never be replicated, but I'm just the kind of guy who wants to see something and see it done, like, as perfected as possible. So I just think that argument's kind of silly, and I understand why people make it, that originality is a really important thing, but I don't think anybody's going to try to tell you that the original Super Mario Bros. Is better than Super Mario 3. I don't think anybody's going to try to tell you it's better than Super Mario World. I don't think anybody's trying to tell you that Final Fantasy 1 is better than Final Fantasy 6 or 7 or 9 or whatever.
I would say that's an exaggerated argument, but at the same time, Pokemon is about as huge an empire as Mario by now.
Oh, yeah, it absolutely is. So, but Gen 2 just did everything, and I found I like this in Pokemon Generations in general. Sort of the pattern I've found myself falling into is I like every even-numbered generation. And I think it's because the even-numbered generations really just take what was done in the previous generation and just try to build on it. They're not afraid to let you capture the old Pokemon and just add something new to them. Gen 4 made a lot of old Pokemon relevant again with new evolutions, and the split of moves no longer being just physical or just special based on their type. And you know, Gen 2 did something similar where there were so many new... Like, Crobat made Zubat not a complete garbage Pokemon. Crobat was actually super legit, and I loved that Pokemon. And it made a Pokemon that was totally, forgettable, not in terms of design, but in terms of practical usage, into something that you actually wanted to catch and use. And, there were a lot of examples like that. And
not me, but I see what you're talking about.
I thought Crobat was super cool. But anyway.
I had extreme prejudice for anything bat.
Was that just because you hated Zubat? I think that's a...
Actually, I hated Golbat.
Yeah.
The first time I encountered a Golbat in Gen 1, I was scared.
Because those sprites were... I mean, that's the sprite work in Gen 1 was legitimately awful. Like, there were so many problems with Gen... And that version we got was the quote-unquote fixed version from what Japan got.
You've seen those sprites, right?
Yeah.
Those sprites are also, like, bad.
Yeah. Oh, no, they're all terrible, but it's just... It's incredible that, like, they still got Coughing sprite wrong. Where, like, if you look at Coughing and you look at his, like, official art, he's got the skull and crossbones beneath him. But if you look at the Gen 1 pixel, it's above him.
Right.
And he's got this weird thing where he's, like, looking at you, like, staring at the
ground. He's looking at you with the sort of, like, are you kidding me right now?
Are you impressed? Like, I don't... And there were, glitches, and Psychic was just completely bonkers overpowered. It was like they were like, okay, no, it's cool because it's weak to Ghost type. And like, all right, sweet. Ghosts are really powerful, and they were because they could learn Psychic type moves, spoiler. But you're like, okay, cool, what Ghost type moves are there? Nightshade.
Nightshade.
That always does fixed damage based on what level I am. Okay, what about the other one? Lick. Okay, great.
Was that Ghost in Gen 1?
Yeah, it was Ghost in Gen 1.
I thought it was normal in Gen 1.
No, those are the only two Ghost type moves, unless I'm forgetting some.
Because I feel like Growlithe had Lick.
I don't think Growlithe did, but it was still Ghost regardless.
Yeah.
I mean, Lickitung did, but it was still Ghost.
But it's still Ghost, yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, okay, They didn't show you the power of moves in Gen 1 either, which was just kind of infuriating, but you figured out pretty quickly what were the terrible ones, and Lick was one of the terrible ones, and then you're like, it's okay, it's super effective, and then you use it. Turns out the game's glitched so that Ghost is actually completely ineffective against Psychic. So in addition to taking away one of its only 2 weaknesses, the other one was Bug, by the way, and every single bug was part poison, which, oh hey, it's weak to Psychic. And the bug moves are terrible. But then you take away one of the weaknesses and you just add a resistance completely. So, yeah, they fixed a lot of things in Gen 2 that just made, and it's not like they gimp Psychic types horribly, but you'd think they would, introducing like Dark types and Steel types are built into it, but everything just felt good. All the balance felt right. It didn't feel like there was a type that was completely bonkers anymore. It felt like you could catch these Pokemon and use them, and it just gave you this really interesting world to like go around and explore. The setting was great. This more rural setting of Japan. I know that Kanto and Johto are both based on those sort of regions in Japan, and they reflect a lot of that culture, which is awesome. But even when you're a kid and you have no idea that that's going on, you could just feel, I don't know, you just feel the culture and the overall. I don't know how to put it.
I know what you mean.
Into
I mean,
every
like
section.
like Ekritique Town has the 2 towers that like are kind of built with that Japanese sort of architecture, and there's like the kimono house and everything too.
Yeah, you didn't really think about the fact that Gen 1 had like basically none of that. Like it didn't have a Japanese feeling at all.
No, they were generic sort of towns. Yeah.
So, yeah, Gen 2 just it did, and then you could go back to Kanto. That was like I don't actually remember if I knew that was going to be a thing at any point before I discovered that you could go back to Kanto in Gen 2. Like if I had heard that from anybody. But man, was it super awesome. Like the fact that you got 8 gym badges and beat the champion and the game didn't end, like was so cool. Like it's not like the gym leaders after that were super challenging. And you could talk about Red and the challenge he offered, but like it's not like the most of the post game was very challenging. But it was just really cool seeing all these gym leaders and doing a completely different order, because you start against Surge. He's the first one you beat.
Yeah, because you go on the SS.
You take the. It's not the SS hand.
Bullet Train, right? Magna Train.
No, you do take. No, it is the SS hand, because you take the ship and then you have to do like a big side quest.
Oh, that's right.
Saffron to fix the Bullet Train.
That's right, but you don't actually like ride the. You don't pat the back of the.
You do not pat the back of the captain, but you do ride it.
Yeah,
you do, because that's like what you get for beating champ. But it's just interesting because you went in this completely different order, and seeing like Misty like grown up and like dating or whatever, like ooh, I'm dating. Or seeing Sabrina not be a psycho, or when Blaine, like his whole island is destroyed, and like you see your rival who was such a doucher in the first game, like there and like respecting nature, and he's like almost a cool dude. It's just
almost.
Like what?
Just, yeah, almost a cool dude.
Yeah, almost. But it was just really cool. It felt like it had everything you could have wanted as a longtime fan of the series, and it just had so much more.
It was definitely a lot more than just it going in color, like that's for sure.
Oh yeah.
I think I mean we've had this conversation before, but I think pretty much every aspect of the game from Gen 1 was improved in some way. The music was a lot better. You know, there's some good music in Gen 1 as well, but Gen 2's music is just better.
Yeah.
The towns are just better. My favorite tune is either going to be the Azalea Town tune, the regular gym theme, or the ending credits. Right? Have we ever talked about the ending credits song
I don't think
before?
so. I don't actually remember the ending credits song.
Oh man, I am not even gonna bother singing it right now. But I'll show it to you maybe later. But it's stuck in my head currently, like as we speak. Like I love it. And then there's the part where like the credits end, right? And it just like shows the last frame, and then like it goes back to like the start screen, and then they do like a sort of music box rendition of it. Like I don't know, like not that I don't think Gen 1 had any thought put into it, because of course it did. And many of those themes are still standard today as far as Pokemon goes. But Gen 2's kind of had more heart, I guess, put into it, I think, as far as the music direction goes. And the sound direction, I also think that the Pokemon sound design, like for the actual like Pokemon themselves, they were updated for the new Pokemon, but it wasn't...
They recycled a lot of sound effects, like a lot of the cries in Gen 1, which is like a few minor tweaks.
I liked that, though, because it didn't feel like you were so completely out of the world, I don't think. Like
in Gen 1?
Gen 2. I mean.
Oh, I was saying in Gen 1 they recycled a lot of... Like, I feel like Hypno and Drowsy sounded exactly the same, and I think Parasect had like the exact same sound effect as like... I think as Mewtwo, it was just like pitch shifted a little bit.
Parasect, Mewtwo... yeah, those were some of the same ones. Charizard Rhyhorn had the same
Oh,
one.
yeah.
A couple Horsey, no, like Goldeen, Caterpie, also,
Yeah.
and Poliwag have the same one, basic one also.
That's true.
I disagree that Drowsies and Hypnos are the same. I think they are sequential, but not the same.
Yeah, I mean they did a lot of like work on the second version, but
Gen-
it makes sense because it's progressing because it's
Yeah,
the same Pokemon
exactly.
or whatever. But I think Gen 1 just kind of shows how inexperienced they were at programming and game making just in general. And the upgrade to Gen 2 is incredible. I think in no small part because of Satoru Iwata and his work on that game. The fact that they were like, we don't know how to fit all the guys, we can't fit 250 Pokemon and 8 badges in this game. Like, it's just impossible. And Satoru Iwata's just like, yeah, like, I'll do all that and I'll fit in an entire second like gym circuit for you, bro. Like, no big deal. It's absolutely incredible.
I'm betting that's exactly how he said it too.
I'm sure, exactly. That's how they talk. Very, very loose.
When I'm trying to think of like what I kind of think of most when I think about Gen 2 is that like I had such a little boy like affair with Lugia.
Yeah.
I mean, since Lugia is the top dog in my game, Pokemon Silver, and this was even probably before Pokemon the movie 2000 came out, or at least before I saw it.
Yeah, that was actually why I assumed it must have come out 98 or 99 because it's called Pokemon 2000, but I think it actually came out 01, which is a little awkward.
Yeah,
but, because it came out after the games. But
yeah, but everybody was still obsessed with the number 2000 at that time.
2000 millennium, whoa.
And Lugia was just I don't know why, Lugia was just my favorite. Like, I thought Aeroblast, I knew nothing about stats
Aeroblast
and like
is
anything
pretty
that like actually goes into playing an RPG effectively. So I just Aeroblasted everybody. Even though there was only five power points for each of them, I just did it to everybody because the animation of that just like blew me away. It was like Hyper Beam,
the
but
little
better.
circle, but it showed up in like quarters or whatever.
And like the screen was shaking and it went into
Yeah.
negative too.
Yeah, it did go to negative.
It's like, come on, man. I remember,
That's a
you know
cool
what?
effect.
That was also one of my
Yeah,
other
like
favorite things about the Gen 2 was that they updated the battle animations.
Yep.
Do you remember Agility's battle animation in Gen 2?
Not off the top of my head.
It was anime. like
Oh yeah, it was like the little lines flying
yeah.
across the screen. Like,
Do you remember Gen 1's Agility?
it was terrible, wasn't it? It
Well,
was
do you know what it was?
Not off the top of my head.
It was a sound effect that went "Meow," and that was it. Like no movement at all, nothing. It just "Meow," like that.
Yeah.
Leer, even just Leer was way
like
better.
lasers.
It was
They
like
made Leer
laser
look
eyes.
super cool.
Who doesn't like laser eyes?
But it's like, this is the lamest move. That's like when I first got a Rattata in like Gen 1. I was like, oh, Tail Whip, that sounds sweet. And it was like, oh, his defense went down. Okay.
Yeah, and again, I had no idea the proper way to do rippages back in that day.
Oh, yeah.
And so I kept on doing Tail Whip a lot. And I'm just like, why isn't it hurting him?
Were you the kid who did Splash all 40 times to see if he would do something?
Well, that one actually explicitly says nothing happened. So that one I was
You
at least
picked
smart
up on?
enough. I
Okay.
picked up on that.
That's
at
good,
least.
yeah.
Yeah, just overall, Gen 2 rather, I think of like colors, obviously because the Game Boy Color had probably about the same palette as like an NES, right? And NES had not a limited palette, but you really only had like saturated colors and like, not a whole lot of room for like pastels or like anything that's like sort of like a combined color with a darkness or like a white color. So everything was pretty vivid to me. Everything was like a primary color in my mind, at least. And it probably mostly wasn't, but that's like what I think of. I think of like the yellows on Pikachu. I think of like, how you can see like the red stripe on his back and things like that,
Was it red in that version?
I think that's what they can handle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I'm sure they fixed that in Crystal, but I don't remember exactly.
I remember like the browns and the greens on Sudowoodo.
Yeah.
And I remember the pink on Whitney's
Miltank.
Miltank.
Yeah. That was, as soon as you said pink, that was the first thing I thought of. Aside from actually, well, no, that was pretty much the first thing I thought of.
I really, really love the Pokemon community and how like when I discovered like the internet Pokemon community and people end up starting to talk about Gen 2, inevitably Whitney's Miltank comes up and I'm just like, I wasn't the only one.
Yeah. At the time, it was kind of infuriating because like if you played, I did Bulbasaur and Kadabra as my starters in Gen 1. So to me, the
how'd
thoughts.
you get a Kadabra as your starter?
Okay, I'm not going. Okay.
Are you
anyway,
a hacker?
Anyway, okay.
Are you the 4chan?
Yeah, I'm pretty elite, bro. So anyway, the gyms were not a challenge. Like Bulbasaur is almost designed to give you the easiest path, and I didn't even choose him because of that. I just chose him because the other two people I knew started with Squirtle and Charmander. It's like, oh, I guess I'll go Bulbasaur, whatever. But so I cannot really think. I think I actually struggled on Erica because I was an idiot and continued using my grass moves.
Me too. But actually, I struggled for Erica for other reasons, but I'll tell that afterwards.
But barring the fact that I was an idiot, like struggling with the gym was kind of foreign to me. And in Gen 2, I actually went with Cyndaquil for no other reason that I really like Cyndaquil's design. And Cyndaquil's actually kind of like he's good against Bugsy, which is fine. But Falconer does actually have ground type moves, which sucks. But it wasn't that bad. And then you get to Whitney, and turns out not only is Whitney's Miltank bonkers and can heal itself like faster than you could do damage, like even as a Quilava, but Rollout's a rock type move, as if it wasn't bad enough. Like Stomp is pretty bad on it. Like it is actually insane how much damage Stomp would do at that level.
And how you always flinch. Like there's anytime somebody stomps you,
yeah.
But anytime you use Stomp, no.
Yeah. There was another thing that was really cool in Gen 2. They introduced a lot of interesting interactions between moves. How Stomp would actually do more damage to you if your Pokemon used Minimize. That was one that I think that's still in the game. But anyway, yeah, Whitney, it was just really weird struggling with the gym leader, especially that early in the game. So I think that's kind of why she's become cult status. But
I followed your path actually, like inadvertently. I was Bulbasaur in Gen 1. Because Professor Oak told me to in the manual.
Oh, he did. That manual was sweet because he had a little thing like, if you're forgetting, I recommend going with Bulbasaur. That's right. They did sort of explicitly say that Bulbasaur was easy mode, and then Squirtle, and then Charmander.
And being the wimp that I was like, I should probably start with that, and so I did. and I think I didn't choose Cyndaquil because he's a fire type or because of his design. I think I was like because I knew that fire type was hard mode in Gen 1. So, and I don't know why I had any reason to think that it would be the same in Gen 2, but I did.
Yeah, it was not. But excuse me, Chikorita was 100% hard mode.
Yeah,
in Gen 2. Not just because the first two gyms are super effective, but because Bailey and Meganium kind of suck. But anyway.
And so it was the same thing. And again, I had no idea what typings were or anything like that. I just honestly thought that rollout, like when I learned what rollout was, which was that it just gets stronger and stronger every time you go, I thought that's what was getting me. I didn't realize it was because it was, against my Quilava. Excuse me. Not to mention that it's a normal type gym. The whole gym is outfitted to look like a Clefairy. Everybody else before them has like Clefairies and like Jigglypuffs and stuff like that.
She did have a Clefairy, but it sucked.
Well, like everybody else before them was easy, right? Yeah. I mean, they were fine, right? And you get to Whitney and you just kind of whatever, the Clefairy, whatever. Miltank, a cow Pokemon.
This is like a cow Pokemon. What a joke!
Yeah.
This is a cow Pokemon. It was like, this is a good idea.
Oh man, I feel like when I remember my first time fighting Whitney, I still feel it in my stomach.
Wow.
Just like the
bad.
oh god, oh no,
Yeah.
I don't know how many times it took me to try to fight her, but I think it just made me grind a lot more, which then probably just made the rest of the game a lot easier because I ground so much for Whitney. And then, of course, after you beat her,
the fourth gym wasn't that easy either. I didn't remember that being a little challenging, but
the fourth gym was Morty.
Ghost. Yeah.
Ghost. It was fine.
I just remember getting wrecked by Hypnosis Shadow Ball a little bit. But, it's variance.
And then, of course, after you beat Whitney, you don't get the badge right away. What happens? You make her cry first.
That was so great. It just added so much personality.
Yeah.
And there were things, like the fact that Morty was, like, in charge of things in his city, where it just felt so alive. Like, he was doing the thing in the towers, and you had to do that stuff before he would recognize you. And, like, what was the other one? Chuck. Who, like, what was Chuck's? I remember his wife was upset at him because he was getting fat or something. But there was some gimmick with Chuck. Or in Jasmine, where you couldn't battle her because she was taking care of the... And, like, Koga advancing from Gym Leader to Elite Four. Or Claire having this relationship with...
Okay, that got on my nerves.
I think Claire was designed to Claire's really annoying.
That's the second gym leader that doesn't give you the badge right away.
But it was really interesting where they added this backstory, like, oh, this is where Lance is from, and like, oh, this is his cousin, and they train together, and like, yeah, she's got a lot of attitude and she thinks she's hot. And she had this relationship with the Elite Four that all the gym leaders in Gen 1, they had great designs, and some of them had some really cool stuff like the invisible walls in Koga's place or Blaine's quiz, which I didn't even realize the first time I played through that Blaine had that quiz element. You had to like go up to the wall and talk to it.
Oh, no, you're right. I didn't realize that either.
Yeah, and then it would ask you. But when I went in, I just saw, trainer.
Oh, fight.
Battle
Fight,
that guy.
fight,
And
yeah.
then the door opened. I was like, I guess I just gotta fight all the trainers. But, Gen 1 had that, but Gen 2 just like, again, it just took what was there and like took it to the next level. It's like, let's add even more personality and like more quirks to this.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was.
And speaking of Lance, I mean, like, none of these side quests that like happen there, I was never bothered by them. Go into the Lake of Rage and then Lance coming in and you're just kind of like, first of all, you're like, oh crap, it's Lance.
Yeah.
Like, that can't be good. and then like you have to go infiltrate the hideout underneath like the town where Lake of Rage is and stuff like that. The only thing that got on my nerves was that it was like, how many Eradicates do I have to keep killing here?
Well, was it because you couldn't figure out how to turn off that security system?
I mean,
because I remember the first time I went through that cave, like figuring out how to turn off the security system so you didn't get assaulted by like 2 or 3 Team Rock guys every time you walked in one of the statues. It was just like,
even that though didn't like bother me that much though. I mean, like I was just excited to go through it all. Then the Elite Four, of course, and as you said before.
Well, go ahead.
Well, as you said before, going through the Kanto gyms was just. What I mean, like, is a treat, right? But it was though, because it was like playing to my nostalgia, even though I was still a kid. But like these were towns that I was intimately aware with, as well as the gym leaders too.
Yeah, I think going back a little bit to the Elite Four, my one qualm with this game, and I don't want to just gush about it. My one big issue with the game was that it felt like it was designed for a very low level experience, like the I don't remember how much I struggled with the Elite Four in Gen 2 compared to Gen 1. And it's kind of a tough comparison anyway, since my first run through Gen 1, I was an idiot and just solar beamed everything. And my second run through, I was a dirty cheater. But I don't remember exactly how much I struggled with it, but it didn't feel as imposing when they were throwing out level 40 to level 42 Pokemon at you, the first couple guys. And trying to get I actually realized this when I picked up my Crystal version and decided to try to do a Nuzlocke a while ago.
That's right.
I got all the way to the end of Victory Road, and I'm like, I really need to grind a little bit because this is a Nuzlocke, I need to take it seriously. And you got to go through the entire Elite Four and Champion. That's where my Nuzlocke when I did it on Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire died, was on my Elite Four run. But, I was like, I got to stop and grind. And I swear, like, the highest level Pokemon you could find is maybe level 28. And you're going up against, like, you're about to go up against, like, level 40s. And trying to grind your Pokemon against level 28 wild Pokemon is an absolute nightmare. Like, and I don't feel like it gets that much better in Kanto, because once you get through, they hadn't introduced the mechanics where you could refight the gym leaders, which was an awesome mechanic when it came out in, I forget if it was in Emerald or later on in Gen 4, but when that mechanic came out, it was great, but it didn't exist yet. So all you could do was grind these level 28 Gravelers and hope that Joey calls you. Like, hope and pray that Joey wants to show you his top percentage Raticate, because that was the only way. If you were not, and in not Nuzlocke, you can just kind of fight the Elite Four, and it's no skin off your nose. Like, you can lose money, but hey, you can give Mom all your money in this version, so who really cares? But that was the one thing where and it wasn't really the end game because you had so much after, but the quote-unquote end game of the Elite Four felt less impressive. Just seeing the number 40 after some of the Elite Four in Gen 1 were like pushing 60. Like,
it did seem like it was needless, I guess, unless they could have upped the levels of the Elite Four again.
I think they were trying to leave room for this stuff in the post game, because I think it wouldn't have been too hard to get the level scaling pretty much similar to Gen 1, because I don't feel like Gen 2 is any shorter in terms of the number of dungeons or routes you have to go through, but the levels were just lower. Like, you go through the Victory Road and it's like, these are like the exact same level Pokemon I fought as when I was going through Ice Road, basically, and it's just like the wild Pokemon don't scale at all, and once you run out of trainers to battle, it is just an absolute nightmare trying to get experience for Pokemon without going through. And even if you're trying to grind your Pokemon to get up to level 70, what's your one avenue? Well, it's the Elite Four, and they're not even packing level 50 Pokemon, most of them. So it's just, it's interesting. I would be curious to know what influenced that design decision and sort of what brought them there. I don't know if it was the fact that they heard that Gen 1 was too tough, but it's like you can just grind. Like it's the nature of RPGs and
right.
This
And there's nothing nuanced about this RPG either. It's just get the thing,
typing,
train the thing. Well,
yeah.
I mean, okay, not nothing nuanced, but like it'd be the same, like, you know, using your black mages properly in a regular like RPG. You know, you're not going to use fire against a bomb. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's about the amount of nuance I think was in there. So let's wrap up this topic. You know, so this is going to come out in about a month, September 22nd. I'm going to get it right away. You probably might as well.
Mm-hmm.
What is probably the biggest thing that you were just looking forward to experience again? Because we had this a little bit before with the re-release of Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and that was great too. We had a lot of fun playing that.
Yeah. We played that a long time after it came out initially, but that didn't dull any of its charm.
But this is going to be like actually like a return to form here.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the thing you're looking forward to the most in this?
Apparently the end credits theme that I forgot about and missed out on.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, no, I am curious to see that again. I mean, just the charm of it all. Like, I just look forward to seeing some of those Pokemon that I haven't bothered to use in a while. Maybe get another Golbat. Maybe start off with my Cyndaquil again. I don't know, there's nothing... It just, I mean... We might as well say now, we weren't super impressed with Pokemon Gen 7, and we'll talk about that more another time, but it'll just be good to...
That's putting it really nicely, too.
Yeah, we'll just be playing a Pokemon game that you know and love, and, you know, it'll be kind of interesting, because, like, I don't remember exactly what Chuck's deal was. I remember his gym in the remake, actually, very well, because you gotta, like, turn off all the waterfalls or whatever, and...
Oh, yeah.
The remake did a really good job with those gyms and making them, the puzzles in them, even more interesting, but, yeah, just sort of remembering what it was like, and I played... so much of this game. I remember at one point we used to go to this place in Warner Spring where it was just like a ranch and you would just like sort of unplug and just be in a really peaceful area, and I played that game every waking moment. Yeah. It was like there was actually a period, I remember it very vividly, where my eyes started to itch like crazy.
Oh really?
Yeah. And like I was actually not allowed to, quote unquote, not allowed, and it wasn't like, I mean, I had to do it for my own health because my parents were like, yeah, you're just looking at this game so much on this tiny Game of Advance screen. I had to like take a break because my eyes were just actually starting to be affected with it. And it was like going through withdrawals, man. Like I just wanted to play, but I knew like my eyes were just absolutely killing me.
Well,
but
you're not hardcore unless you live hardcore. God,
I think that's the one time that
I've never even had that.
Yeah.
It's funny that you
I don't even know that it was necessarily linked, but at the time it was like my eyes are itching, and I am undeniably playing hundreds of hours of this game on a tiny Game Boy Color screen before backlighting existed. Oh
my gosh!
And back in the, it really was the dark ages. Like we could say that as like old folk. Oh gosh, we could say that as old folk, but it was rough playing Game Boy games, but that didn't stop me. That doesn't stop me from playing hundreds of hours on it. And
it's funny
I
because
think my battery did actually give out on that game.
Even though I knew that, as a side note, even though I knew that Game Gear existed and it had backlighting on it, I didn't care.
Oh, the Sega one?
Yeah. Game Gear had backlighting on it and color and everything like that.
I had cousins who had Game Gear. They didn't live close to me, so I didn't get to play it much, but it just seemed so incredibly bulky and just wrong to me. I don't even remember the fact that it back. All I remember is that it sucked through batteries like a mother, and I feel like the cartridges. Someone could correct. I feel like the cartridges were actually like Genesis-sized cartridges.
Oh,
they were big, and I was like, "This seems so impractical." Like, look how much bigger the screen. I was like, "How would I ever take this with me anywhere?" Like, this is like you'd think the Game Boy was a brick, like the Game Gear. Oh boy, like.
So yeah, I think the thing I'm looking forward to most, and it, you know, it seems kind of weird, I guess, for a grown man to say this, but it's going to be like revisiting like old friends again. I think, you know, I mean, it's funny that you have a vacation memory with you playing this game. I do as well. Mm-hmm. We went to a beach house in Mexico, actually. You know, I guess it was like 9 or 10 or 11 or something like that. We spent a whole week there. It was a really, really fun time. It was just in, you know, Rosarito Beach. It's a common tourist attraction, so it's not like we were like back in the motherland or anything like that. But it was a lot of fun because the house that we had was right on the beach, and I spent a lot of time outside, and I have some fun memories of that as well. But during downtime, I was playing Pokemon Silver specifically. Like I might have brought other games with me, but they weren't getting played. It was just Pokemon Silver the whole way through.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of strong memories with this game. Like, and the announcement of it coming out on VC is pretty exciting.
It was actually, I was just going to interject here. It was kind of interesting seeing the reaction to this in general from the Pokemon community, because I think the Pokemon community was pretty hyped about it. But the general Nintendo, well, I don't know if I can even say that, because I think people at the time of this announcement, we got three things. We got Pokemon DX, we got Sun and Moon Ultra or whatever, and we got the re-release of Gen 2 on VC. And it felt like the response was really lukewarm for all of them. And I don't know if that was because everyone expected the Gen 7 or even Gen 8 on the Switch, but I just felt the reaction was, it felt like it was all like that, because like, we just got like a re-release of this fighting game for the Wii U that didn't do well. We got Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon on the 3DS, and we already had, they literally had not, I don't think they'd even been out for a year when this announcement was made, because did they come out last year, or had they been out? I don't remember exactly, but it was not, and then it was like, Gen 2 came out, and it was like, yeah, I guess it's about time, but like the response I saw was like, a lot of people saying like, well, like, I guess this is cool for the people who wanted it. And that really surprised me, because I think this might become a running theme for the show, because the more I think about what the topic of the show is going to be, it's a little bit of sort of animated nostalgia. I feel like everything we're going to be talking about is animated, either because it's a video game, or we focus on animated movies, or our next segment, which we're going to do, is also an animated thing. But it's sort of interesting seeing how these things that used to be like pure nostalgia, like Super Mario RPG is something else that we're going to talk about eventually because it's one of our favorite games. That used to be like the game. Every website you went to was like games that need a sequel. Super Mario RPG, like top of the list. Now it's like, I remember I went to a Smash 4 tournament for Wii U out in my area, and I had to pick this. I just decided to pick this one guy up. He was posting online for a ride. Shout out to Kingslayer, aka the Ride King of the IE. And I don't remember how we got to this topic. I think we was talking about DLC, but it was like, what characters do you want to see? And he's a big Metroid fan, so he's like, dude, Ridley, like, and he's younger than me. He's still in college. Like, yeah, I always wanted to see Geno. And he's like, I never got why people wanted Geno. And I'm like, well, have you ever played it? It's like, no, but I mean, he was only in the one game, and his design isn't even that good. And I'm just like, it's just, there really has been, get out of my car. But it's really interesting seeing how, and even seeing the reaction to Gen 7 from other people compared to sort of how we react, and their reaction to the Gen 2 re-release. It's just really interesting. I don't know if we have sort of our nostalgia blinders on. I don't feel like it, because we love Gen 6.
Yeah, we do. We do. Gen 6 is further along in like the Pokemon lineage, so it's hard to sort of talk about the improvements on the previous gens. I mean, there are improvements from previous gens, but we did genuinely have a really fun time playing Gen 6. I played a lot of post game on Gen 6 as well, so it's not a full bias on Gen 2 either.
Yeah, but I just saying, I think it's going to be interesting to see how it's, and I wonder if that influenced their decision to not put out Crystal. I also wonder if it had to do with the sales of Red, Blue, Yellow, if they just noticed Yellow wasn't selling. But Yellow was kind of a gimmick, because it was like, you basically get to be Ash. You get to start with Pikachu, and you actually get all three starters, because that's not busted. So I wonder, I don't know, I'll be curious to see how they do. I would be a little surprised if they bothered to put out Crystal after this, if they're not doing it now. But it'll be interesting to see. So
yeah. All right, so we're going to move on to a next little, I guess, segment, and hopefully a running segment that we're going to be doing with this podcast. We decided to title it The Simpsons Inside and Out, right? Yes. Okay. I mean, that's subject to change.
Because apparently Saul doesn't like it much anymore.
Well, I don't know. Maybe we'll change it every day. Who knows?
If we get clever.
Basically, I'm a gigantic Simpsons fan, of like who you expect a gigantic Simpsons fan to be. Basically, only the earlier seasons, and definitely not so much the newer seasons that come out. Dave is not a fan of The Simpsons, but he has only ever seen about 2 episodes, I think, in his lifetime. Maybe a couple, like with me or whatever like that, but I doubt he's ever like kept them to memory. So Dave actually pitched this idea that it might be interesting for us to watch a Simpsons episode, off the air, quote unquote. And then we can hear, we can start talking about the episode from the insider's perspective, which would be mine, and then the outsider's perspective, which would be Dave's. I will pick the episodes myself and just make sure that, as we noted, like, Dave was saying, like, aren't there like story arcs? And I was like, there are like no story arcs. And then he started mentioning some particular characters we'll talk about later, and then I'd be like, okay, fine, I'll pick and paw these episodes myself to make sure that there's no conflicts there, even though I'm sure he knows exactly what these arcs are anyways, but whatever.
Kind of, but I have no idea how they influence later events, or like how much they get referenced, or even I don't even know how much Simpsons relies on inside gags, honestly.
Not much. Well, whatever, it's all right. Either way, this episode that we just saw has none of which, basically, so
didn't seem like it.
So the first episode we did is from season 7, episode 14, called "Scenes from the Class Struggle in Springfield." A quick synopsis of this episode is that the Simpsons TV breaks down because Grandpa Simpson breaks it, and so they go all the way out into an outlet store, like in Ogdenville, which is sort of like the hick town in the Springfield area, and they buy a new TV. Since they're there, Marge and Lisa decide to go dress shopping, and she finds a Chanel suit that's priced for $90 that was marked down from $2,800, and so Marge decides to splurge on herself, although it takes her some resistance. And basically, Homer, being the cultured person he is, they don't do anything with it. Marge happens to be at the Quickie Mart while wearing that suit and runs into an old high school friend of hers, kind of friend, and she sees her inside this Chanel suit and then decides to invite her to her country club because she thinks she's like kind of high class. At first, the Simpsons have a whole lot of aversion to going to this club, because it's not them, it's a little too highbrow for them. But then they all end up finding something to enjoy about it. Lisa finds horseback riding. Homer actually gets into golf. Bart, something.
Bart is not featured very much.
I guess not. No,
episode.
That's okay. So, anyways, Marge only has the Chanel suit. So she's trying all she can to alter the suit every once in a while to make it seem like she has this fresh new wardrobe and whatnot. And so the time finally comes for them to do their initiation dinner, and she ends up accidentally messing up the suit in her sewing machine. So she's so desperate to get in with this crowd, though, in this country club, that she ends up buying a full-on new Chanel suit for $3,300. And as they're about to go inside the country club with the whole family, Marge is being very stickler with each of them, saying like, Homer, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, and everything like that. Even giving a sneer to Maggie for, sucking on her pacifier. And then she realizes, of course, that this isn't her and this isn't her family. And so even before they go back inside, they decide to leave. And they end up just going to a Krusty Burger, all in full suit and everything like that. So that's the basic synopsis of the episode. I could say it's one of my favorites. I think I could say that about most episodes, though. So let's hear first from the outsider perspective, from watching this for the first time.
I had a lot of fun watching it. It was just good fun, good laughs. One thing I'm only realizing now is that I had sort of completely forgotten that the episode starts off with Grandpa breaking the TV. And I think it's sort of become almost a trope. I don't remember if this was a thing that Family Guy did specifically, and not that I know very little about TV shows in general, but I do remember, I feel like it was sort of a shtick in Family Guy or something where the episode would just start with a complete non sequitur. It would just start off with something that had nothing to do with anything the rest of the episode. And I don't know if that's something that The Simpsons does regularly, but it felt like that. But I didn't realize that that's what it was until now, because it really flowed into the rest of the episode perfectly. Like, it just, the way it did it it didn't force you to realize, like, hey, this is a non sequitur and that's why it's funny. It was just a funny situation that you could see happening to these characters. And to start off with the TV show that I'm sure we'll see a lot more of with the Hispanic bee.
Bumblebee Man.
Yeah. So there you go. That's how you can tell I'm an outsider, because I refer to him as Hispanic bee.
You could have called him LB or something.
That's how you say bee in Spanish is be.
You would know, David.
Okay. But yeah, and it was just, and that started off a gag where they drop him off at the home, and then they immediately cut to 3 of the family members just cheering loudly about it. And that actually might have been one of my favorite gags in the whole episode. But yeah, it does a good job of establishing these characters. Like we said, Bart was just kind of there, but this felt, even as someone from the outside, it felt like Lisa, it felt like Homer. Marge is a little bit less established to me as an outsider, but you can tell pretty quickly the kind of character that they're because it was interesting when Lisa said something like, "Oh, you don't have to justify this to yourself," and she's like, "Oh, you're right."
When she was talking about buying the dress.
Right,
for
right. But
herself,
she's talking about buying the dress. She's like, "Oh, you're right. It's good for the economy." Like you can,
Yeah.
you can immediately just tell like, this is something that I'm sure we're going to see in the, and it's something that she had probably been like for a long time, and fans sort of knew, but they were just acknowledging like, yeah, this is one of the caricature sort of aspects of this character.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was good. I mean, the ending was like is exactly what you'd expect. Like, oh, they realize family's more important, and this isn't where they belong. But it didn't feel like cliche. It was just fun, and I always, in what little I've seen, I've always loved anything involving Montgomery Burns. So the subplot with Homer golfing with him was great. And
Yeah.
And the gag where the professional golfer or whatever comes and teaches Homer how to swing and takes his clubs back.
Yeah.
And even Krusty, there are so many little gags. It's really the pacing is really good, and sort of the placement of the gags and how quick they come when they're supposed to come. It's super solid.
It is, yeah. I guess coming from the insider now perspective, I suppose, is this episode is pretty important because much like, because you brought up Family Guy, much like Family Guy doesn't do very many Meg-centered episodes, there aren't so many, like, at least in the earlier years, Marge-centered episodes. So much so that it was legitimate dialogue to have Lisa say, like, you never spend anything on yourself and whatnot, because Marge is just a loving mother and like a good housewife.
Mm-hmm.
And a really good stay-at-home mom, essentially. That, like, she wants to keep her family, happy.
It's
she
family
keeps
first.
Yeah, exactly. The house is always clean. She's always cooking for them and everything like that. And, like, I mean, my mom is I say still now, just the same way. It's always family first and her second. And that's exactly what you see with Marge, even in a comedic sort of way, but that's it. And so it's like, in the beginning, it's like, you're happy. Like, even though she might be going a little overboard trying to get in with the country club crowd, it's still like, you're still rooting for her in a way, because it's like, yeah, this is something nice for her, And then, she kind of turns into the villain, I suppose. I mean, if you want to think of it that way. And then, everything comes out good in the end. Like, it's just a good sort of vignette into, like, Marge's, making Marge more than just the housewife character, It's good stuff. The subplot, is great. What's also great about it is that it's a subplot that happens in, like, the last third of the whole, like, episode. You know what I mean? It's not like, from the beginning Homer was, like, always wanted to get into golf.
It kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, at first it's just a gag about what's he going to do with this country club. Oh, I guess it's golfing. And then it just, evolves into him being pretty good at it and like golfing in the company bathroom or whatever, and Mr. Burns and Smithers seeing it because of course we have cameras everywhere, and the running gag of Smithers, who's that, whatever, insert weird descriptor about whatever Homer happens to be doing at this particular time. And then into a full subplot. This is funny because it involves Mr. Burns, so why wouldn't it be?
The running joke with Krusty was also just great. Like, they could have done that with any character, but, like, Krusty just has good reactions to things. I thought it was funny then. I think it's funny now. I would say that, like, not a lot of my favorite gags have come from that episode, but it is an episode that I would never, like, shy away from, Like, if it happened to be on TV, of course I'd be like, ooh, I like this episode, It's one of those.
There didn't seem to be, like, any one gag where it was like, oh, this is the gag that makes the episode, and this is the gag this episode will always be remembered for, but it's just a solid episode.
Yeah, because they all kind of have the same plane. I mean, the one that I'm thinking of right now is, like, that one other, like, country club member in, like, Marge's little circle at the very end was, I hope she didn't take my attempts to destroy her personally, and something like that.
Yeah. My country club members did have a couple of good lines. What was the one? Like, she just thinks wit as a humorous comment, but delivered with perfect timing after an insightful insight. It's like, oh, wait a minute.
Oh, wait, I get,
okay.
Everything Homer does in these seasons that's like physical humor is just great. In the newer seasons, and I'm going to do my best to not have to just always, dump on the newer seasons.
We're trying not to just be those guys.
I'm trying.
Even though we don't like Gen 7.
And so I'm going to try not to constantly just dump on the new seasons, but the new seasons do rely a lot on Homer's physical comedy in that way, which just sort of translates to him getting hurt a lot, and sometimes funny ways, but it's just sort of like he's been hurt literally every way that we've seen so far, so it's nothing new. In this one, there's like Homer trying to tee off. he like puts his
Why
shoe
would he do that?
on the golf ball, like
Next to another golf
next
ball.
to another golf ball, and then he swings the club just right on his shoe. I'm just like, I mean, like, I don't know what the writers are thinking. Like, okay, so he's gonna do this wrong, but exactly how wrong is he gonna do this? Yeah, and then the celebrity golfer comes in. You know, they had very little reliance on celebrities back then, and even this one just works because he's so neutral. You know, so
I don't know if he might be a Class A golf celebrity, but a Class A golf celebrity is a class like C celebrity to the rest of us who are like, who are you? Like, I don't
zing, I guess. Sheesh. So yeah, if you were to give this episode out of a 10, what are you gonna give it?
It's kind of hard considering I've only seen like 2 other episodes.
This might be okay though, still in the outsider perspective.
It's an 8.
It's an 8.
Yeah.
You know what? I'd give it that too.
Yeah,
You know,
like,
it's not the best in the series, it's not the best in the season, but it's still a good one.
and maybe my opinion. Well, I mean, maybe it shouldn't change as I see more. Like, you don't have to. I probably shouldn't necessarily change. Anyway, yeah, I think an 8 is fine. It's good.
Yeah.
I enjoyed. I didn't have any. Never while I was watching it today, so like I wish I wasn't watching this. And there's a lot of it was really interesting how much stuff. Like even now, I'm thinking of the other gags, like Lisa with the horse or whatever. Like there's so much interesting little things like shoved in there, and they don't feel shoved in. It's just this is a natural thing.
It's
that
the natural
happens.
progression,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's what made the show so good. And I gotta not. I'm not gonna.
Okay.
Nobody
All
wants
right.
to hear that. They can
Cool.
go to YouTube anytime to see stuff like that.
With the-
Okay, well that's about it, I guess, for the first episode. I guess for the first try.
I don't think we ever said the podcast name.
They can read it.
Okay, I just thought it's
If they can work a
customary
computer to listen to something,
introduce
they can-
people to what they're listening to.
You know what? Then
But I
fine.
guess it's a
You go
little late
ahead.
for that. Okay.
You go
Thank
ahead.
you
Go
for
ahead.
listening.
You want to do this? Go ahead.
I didn't want to do this, but I was just noting that we didn't do. Okay. Thank you for listening to Why Do I Talk to You podcast. I have been Gamer Dave Naple. You can't find me anywhere on the internet yet because I don't want to be found, but I'll figure that out eventually.
I've been Saul Starsheep 4. You can't find me anywhere on the internet because I'm not relevant. So
They can find you. You can find him at Starsheep4 on Twitter.com.
Sure. My last post is in 2010.
Great. You'll have plenty of space to make your own.
Fantastic.
Great.
But you're not anywhere yet? You don't have that handle anywhere so far?
I don't remember my Twitter handle.
Your Twiddler.
My Twitter.
Is it Ninja Trainer, maybe?
Maybe.
Maybe.
I don't know.
So our Horda fan can now try to find Ninja Trainer.
If you can find me and you follow me, I will accept you if I log in. How's that? That's a deal.
Well, if you have made it to the end of this podcast full and through, we just want to say, first of all, congratulations. You are a trooper. But on the real, just thank you so much for giving this a shot. Hopefully it was entertaining for you. I think Dave and I had some fun doing this as well.
We sure did, yeah.
And we are certainly open to a whole lot of different topics. We have many plans, but you know, if you happen to want us to cover something, we will certainly see if we care enough to do that. And
Let's see if we care enough about your interest to do something for you,
Well, I mean-
Mr. Fan.
well, I mean, we're the big time now, right? We have a podcast.
yeah.
That's how it works, right?
Oh, yeah.
We're not sure exactly yet on the timeline of how often these are going to come out, or even if the pitchforks are going to come to my house and telling us to stop. God, we really love this, don't we?
I guess
We have a whole lot of faith in this
gluttons,
podcast.
Gluttons for punishment here.
In any case, again, thank you for listening, even if you just skipped all the way forward and just wanted to give this a shot. We will get better, I promise, and we will cover a myriad of different topics here. So anyways, like we said before, just thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully we will be back again very soon with a new episode, and we will catch you then.
Take care.
We'll be right back.